year 1957, Hasbro game company, now part of Parker Brothers, introduced a game that became quite successful and is still quite successful, not just here in the United States, but around the world. And that is a game called Risk. Risk. Some of you may, at one point in your life, have played Risk. Some of you may still be playing it. I don't know. They may actually have online versions of the game. Nowadays, they have online versions of many games. Risk. Okay. And the whole idea behind Risk was, I believe there were somewhere between 4 and 6 players, just going by memory. And the world is divided up into 6 continents. And you have to, through strategy and through taking risks, thus the name of the game, you have to conquer the world. So it also helps to have a certain megalomania as well. But the idea is that you're going to conquer the world, okay? But strategy takes strategy, and it takes risk-taking. That's the title of the game. And so the game is rather elaborate. I mean, there's a good number of rules that must be followed, you know, for even world conquest demands a certain number of rules. But I'm interested, there's one rule in the game of Risk that I would like to read to you. If a player disrupts the natural play progression by taking his or her risk card out of sequence, when you're not supposed to do it, then that player will incur a game penalty as determined by the tournament officials. A player will also warrant a penalty if the player tries to take more than one earned risk card during the scope of a turn. Thus, drawing 2 risk cards from the pile is not allowed. Okay? So here's a game of strategy, a game that's entitled Risk. And there's one risk that you cannot take. Risk breaking the rules. Too bad that many people who actually did try to conquer the world didn't realize that they had to play by the rules, because almost none of them did in their efforts. Okay, it's an interesting rule, isn't it? In the game of Risk, the only thing you cannot risk is breaking a rule, because then you'll be punished. And I thought that's an interesting idea, isn't it? That in life, in the game of life, you do need to take risks, and you do need to strategize, and you do need to plan. But you also have to play by the rules. Now, I thought of the game of Risk when I was reading today's gospel, and you're going to say to yourself, now, how did you ever approach that? Because the young man who stands before Jesus is somebody who knew all the rules and was playing by them. Okay? He knows all the commandments. He knows them, and he knows them by heart. But unlike a lot of people who know them and don't follow them, he not only knows them, but what? He follows them. All of these things I have, what? Learned? No, all these things I have done from my youth, he says. So he has not only learned the commandment, he's followed the commandments. I don't know about you, but I have an image of this rich young man standing before Jesus. And he's got this fancy suit on, and he's got this bow tie, and he looks like his mommy has dressed him. And all you can think of is all the kids that you remember from school who were the perfect kids. They were always dressed properly. They always had the right clothes on for the proper temperature out. If it was raining, they had an umbrella, and they had their galoshes, and they had their raincoats. I remember as a little kid, we still had those yellow raincoats that had the yellow hoods and all that sort of stuff, you know. And every time, and no matter what was happening in the class, they were always quiet, controlled, and they were studying. They always followed all the rules. The teacher was always proud of them. The teacher always pointed to them, whether it was a little boy or a little girl, and said, I wish you were all like Sally Mae or Jimmy Lou, or whatever, you know, I mean, I wish you were all just like them, because they're perfect. Disgustingly perfect. Each and every one of them, they follow all the rules. Now, this young man, see, he could have secretly been a cheater. You know, he could have been somebody, because you always meet people who are like sort of, I don't know how many of you remember that guy from Leave It to Beaver, who was the one that was always going, yes, Mrs. Cleaver, yes. But he was always a stinker, you know, really. But this young man who appears before Jesus is not that. He is authentic. He's the right stuff. And Jesus recognizes that, because it says, and Jesus looked at him and loved him. In other words, Jesus saw that he was telling the truth. He really was living out the law. And so, you know, here is the perfect recruit right there before Jesus. Perfect recruit. You know, and he says, now, all you have to do is what? Take a risk. Now is the time to take a risk. Are you ready to take a risk? Well, let me hear it. Go sell everything you have, give the money to the poor, say goodbye to everyone, come follow me. And he wasn't able to take the risk. He could play by the rules perfectly. He was certain that, you know, and probably everybody in the community said, there he is. We know that guy is going to just be, whatever he does in this world, he's going to be the perfect dad, he's going to have the perfect house, he's going to have the perfect job, everything. We're proud of him. The community's proud of you. The world is proud of you. All 6 continents love you. Are you ready to take a risk? No. He wasn't. He wasn't. And so he went home. And you'll notice that there is nowhere where Jesus condemns him. Jesus offers him an opportunity. Is he still a good person? You bet. Does he still follow the laws? Yeah. Is he going to wear that nice suit and that bow tie until the day he dies? Yes. Is he going to have a house in the suburbs with all the nice, whatever the suburbs were in those days, and with nice kids and a nice family? Probably so. But probably will never take a risk. Certainly not a risk like Jesus is asking. And it is risky stuff. I mean, the apostles attest to that afterwards, because they're going, hey, well, wait a minute. We may not exactly look like that guy. You know, we remember having that guy sitting next to us in school. You know, but we've left everything and followed you. We took the risk. Now, what's in it for us? And that's when Jesus says, you can be sure that you will be rewarded. But Jesus goes on to say something that's very interesting, doesn't he? He says, God loves all these people. God loves all the people that follow his commands and obey the rules and live nice lives and live in the suburbs and do all the things that everybody expects to them, and everybody sits back and says, aren't they wonderful? You know, God is still going to love them. But the ones who are going to be in the kingdom are going to have to be risk takers. How hard it is to come through the narrow gate unless you're willing to take a risk. At some point, to put everything on the line in order to take an extra step. Something that not everybody is going to understand, because not everybody understood the apostles. The risk of being hated, the risk of being misunderstood, the risk of being hauled off to court because all those good citizens out there said, get rid of them. They upset us by their risk-taking. Kind of scary, isn't it? Gee, Lord, I followed all the rules. I kept all the commandments. I memorized them all. I even could say them backwards. And I did everything that the sisters told me to do, and I wore all the right clothes, and I never forgot my umbrella. And Jesus says, but did you take any risks? take any risks. Well, no. Gee, you were that close coming into the kingdom. Did you ever risk having people not understand you? Or look down upon you and say, who do you think you are? By what you're taking a stand on. Or by the way you live your life. Perhaps daring not to follow the way in which the culture sets it all up. The 10 Commandments of proper living in today's world. To follow Christ at a time when that's not the convention, to follow him to this degree on this particular subject. What kind of risk are you willing to take for the sake of the kingdom? Does it mean in the end that we don't follow the commandments? Absolutely not. You've got to obey the rules. See? Coming into the kingdom says you follow the commandments. You follow the laws of the church. You follow everything that the church tells you. But when it comes to taking that extra step, you're also willing to put it all on the line. Put all your security and all your happiness and all your contentment and your nice, easy life on the line. Because that little narrow gate is what leads to the kingdom.